Hi, welcome to Shannon Confidential. Shannon Confidential is a podcast about life, love, and everything in between. And one of my favorite things to do in between all the chaos in the world is eat. And one of my favorite things to eat in the whole world, I could honestly think I could eat my weight in this, is ceviche. I love making this. It's so simple. It's so easy. I'm so excited to bring it to you. So welcome to my ceviche cooking confidential. Here we are at step one of making my favorite classic ceviche. Now today we are using halibut. It takes about 1 pound. I've done it with shrimp. I've done it with tilapia. You could use skinless snapper. You can also use bass. Really any really light, fluffy ocean fish will do. But make it your own. If snapper's not your favorite and you like halibut or you prefer just plain shrimp, really, the one thing that is so great with ceviche, I'm making it a more of a classic style, but you truly can make it your own. You can have a blast with this. So I'm really looking forward to getting started with you. What you're going to do is take 1 pound of your fish and you're going to cut it into 1/2 inch, like diced pieces. Enough to make a bite, but you also want it to be able to cook. You don't want it too chunky. Some people like bigger pieces, some people like smaller pieces. Really, honestly, make it your own. So let's get started cutting our halibut. Now, as we go through making this little fun ceviche dish, you're gonna realize I do not have knife skills. I need to go to knife school, I know, but I'm gonna do it my way. And again, we're taking 1/2 inch diced pieces of your halibut or whatever fish you choose. So what I choose to do is cut them all as evenly as possible, with of course not taking off any fingers. And I go right down each fillet of the halibut. And what I'm going to do from here, after I've done that, to make it easier and to keep it consistent, because you know, if you watch Gordon Ramsay or any of the other shows, they're all about consistency. So I'm going to try to make it consistent. And now I'm going to try to keep my diced pieces about the same size, going the opposite direction. And I'm going to do that with all of my 4 halibut fillets. Okay, so we're almost about done with our 1 pound of halibut cut into diced pieces. Now, if you find you get your fish home from the market and there's bones, you will have to, there's a little deboning knife and I can show it to you. It's like little, like tweezers or kind of something or other. Never had to use it, thank gosh. But you do not want to have bones in your ceviche. And so once you get done cutting up about 1 pound of, again, whatever ocean fish you choose to do, again, we're doing halibut here, skinless. We're going to put it in the bowl, and the next up is going to be a white onion. Now, a lot of people say they don't like raw onion in food, and when, for the most part, like a red onion sometimes can be a little potent raw. You know, it has, you know, it repeats on you, if you know what I'm talking about. But the one thing that's good about this ceviche dish with using a raw onion is it soaks in the acid of the lime juice with the ceviche for 4 hours. So it's basically cooking itself. So it's not so raw as much as it's raw. It's just cooking in the acid. So I use a white onion, and when I get done with all this piece here, cutting it up, making sure I don't leave any fingers on here. So then you take all of your fish and you're gonna put it directly into the bowl, as I am doing, trying again not to cut myself. So if any of you out there are cooks and you're watching me stab myself with the knife, don't worry, I won't have blood squirting everywhere. At least I hope not. All right, and next will be our white onion. Okay, now that we have our 1 pound of halibut chopped up into diced pieces in the bowl, next is to add your onion. Now again, as I mentioned before, there are people who like specific onions and people who swear by not using certain onions. This case, it's a white onion, but by all means, if you don't like white onion, use a different onion. I really, to be honest with you, I almost did this with shallots because that's my favorite onion. I think they're very mild. I just think they're pretty. But I'm gonna keep it classic because that's what I told you I would do. Now what I'm gonna do is to dice it up. Here's a little knife skills slicing trick that I have seen. If you take your onion, get one side flat, so it goes flat. Go down, and then turn it and do the exact same thing. Keep it together. Don't go all the way through because you need the base of it to stay together to do what I'm about to do next, which is quite exciting. So then you're gonna do the same thing going this way, again, not going all the way down. and not trying to take off your fingers. Cooking with very long fingernails is not easy either, but I can do it. I've got skills. Okay, now to dice it, and you can do this, I'm gonna do this with my tomato too. Anything you want diced, now as you go down, watch. It dices itself. A lot easier than going all over the place. Even though that's pretty, but when you don't have knife skills, you have to learn the tricks of the trade. And this is how I am going to dice my white onion for my classic ceviche. Now that I am finishing up with dicing my 1 medium white onion, I'm going to put that right into the bowl with our 1 pound of halibut. And next up will be our lime juice. It's time for our limes. Now this recipe, classic ceviche, and pretty much all of the ceviches requires the fresh lime juice. It is better. It's a little bit more work, but I like it better. I would say go with fresh lime juice. So I have about 12 limes here, and I'm hoping it comes to 1.5 cups. So overbuy, don't cut yourself short. On the other hand, if the only thing you have is the bottle of lime juice from the grocery store, by all means, it's not gonna taste bad. It's just my preference to squeeze it. Now, you do get slight cardio workouts, so you can also consider making tilapia a fitness regimen. Because watch as I go through all of these limes, squeezing them both sides. It just takes a lot of arm strength. Now, if a lot of people put their fork in it and squeeze it by hand, and that's great, by all means, I am not telling you not to do what you're comfortable doing or what you like doing. All I'm saying is this little gadget, my little squeezer, makes it so much easier. So you can put your lime in, and you're gonna squeeze the hell out of it. And this is why getting 1.5 cups of lime juice takes a while. That's just 1/2. Do it the other way too. And this is what you're going to do for all of your limes. Now, this recipe does call for orange juice, and I will be doing the same thing with an orange, but it's a lot less, so it's so much easier. But you're going to do this until you have 1.5 cups. Now, I have the pulp from the lime going down into the bowl. I am not suggesting that you have to strain it. I personally like the pulp. I like a really super tart, zesty ceviche. So any chunks, any of that extra stuff that you can add in there, I just think makes it so fabulous. And see, this is where you get your workout in. And you will do this until you have 1.5 cups of lime juice for your classic ceviche. Okay, now that I've gone through a cool, long, hard cardiovascular workout, upper arm exercise with these limes, I'm on my last couple. Now, if you're wondering if you could use a standard lime, which is what I'm using, or key lime, you can use a key lime. Again, ceviche is make it your own. A standard lime is about 2 tablespoons, I think, 2 tablespoons per lime, and a key lime is 1 to 2. So it all just depends on how much you need. Obviously, you'll have to buy more key limes. Now, a couple of these limes were under producers, so that's why you overbuy, because with limes, as ripe as you think that they are, sometimes they're just not juicy, so you gotta, compensate. So I'm gonna take 1.5 cups of my fresh squeezed lime juice, and I'm going to pour it directly over my onions and my halibut. Now, what you want to do is, and I'm gonna take my little secret stash of everything back there. You need to make sure that your fish is submerged. You want it fully submerged, almost floating in your acid, because what ceviche does, if you did not know this, the acid from your lime juice is actually what is technically cooking your fish. So if you have fish that's not submerged and you don't have enough juice and the fish is out, your fish is going to be raw, which is going to make for a really nasty ceviche experience. So now that I have it completely submerged, there's nothing floating out of the top, all my onion, everybody's in, I'm going to cover this and put it in the refrigerator to cook for 4 hours. So it's almost ready. All right, now we're making the fun part. These are the flavorings for the ceviche. So we have our halibut chilling with our onion and our lime juice for 4 hours in the refrigerator covered. And next I'm making the flavorings, which is tomatoes, 2 tomatoes, medium to large, diced, jalapenos, 2, or you could use srirachas, but I'm gonna use 2 jalapenos, finely chopped. We're also gonna add in some olives, green olives, Spanish olives, olive oil if you prefer. I'm going to add it just because I think it marinates very, very well, and cilantro, which I do believe should go on everything. So all of that we are now going to chop up, and that's going to be our flavorings. That's going to sit and marinate and just get happy with each other in the bowl, and at the very end we combine it all. So I'm starting with 2 tomatoes, and again, like I showed you before with the onion, I'm going to slice it this way. Now the tomato naturally has a flat spot on the side, so I'm not worried about it being, on a level surface. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to slice it again this way. Let your knife do your work so you're not sawing, which then mushes your tomato, and you don't want that to happen. And then you are going to turn it and dice away. See how easy this is? It's so much easier to do. So if you're making salsa, dicing it for your salad, whatever it is, and this tomato's kind of ripe, so it's a little spongy and soupy, but it at least tries to give you consistent square diced pieces for your ceviche, but it all goes in there, it all goes down the same way, so what does it matter? So here we go. All right, we are on our last diced tomato. And so again, it's not, usually when they're not this ripe, maybe I should have gotten a little firmer one. It's much easier to dice down. This is probably the worst cutting skills ever on TV, but I promise you the ceviche is really good. So I'm gonna cut so it doesn't look like I'm slaughtering my tomato, but next up is 2 jalapenos, and that's gonna add the spice to it. Okay, if you know me, I make up words. I forget what things are called, so I just make up words. I think I said the other type of green chili you could use is a sriracha. That might be a dance, I'm not really sure. But what I meant to say was serrano chili, but I'm going to use a jalapeno. And what you're going to do is you're gonna slice them, seed them, and finely dice them. Now, I am not using gloves when I am de-seeding, which, I might regret later when I stick my finger in my eye and it burns like a son of a bitch. But nonetheless, so you're going to slice them, clean them out, de-stem them, take all the seeds out, which is what de-seeding is, and then I'm going to dice them up into small pieces. Now, if you really love your hot chilies and you like them chunky, well then you make them chunky. You can do whatever you want in your ceviche. I'm just making it classic style. So as I finish this up, we'll be right back. Now that our jalapenos are sliced, seeded, and stemmed, and we are finally chopping them, I am going to add them again into the bowl of our flavorings of our mutilated tomato, which is really supposed to be diced. And after that, we are going to be adding some cilantro, some orange juice, salt, and as I prefer, the olive oil to be in it because I do believe it's a marinade. It kind of gives this a fabulous flavor, so once you put it in with the acid of the lime juice, it just comes together so nicely. And so again, it's optional to use olive oil, but I strongly suggest that you do because, just tastes better. So we're finishing up here on my fabulous knife skills. In goes our jalapenos. And again, you could use serranos, but I choose to use jalapenos either way. It doesn't matter. These are 2 jalapenos. Some people would say, oh girl, there's no way that is finely diced. Well, I make it in my own and I like them just simply diced. So in they go, and next we'll be on to our orange. Okay, so I am just gonna wing it here. For the orange juice, it is 3 tablespoons, I believe it was. Okay, I'm gonna have to slice it a little bit more because they're not quite fitting in my bigger juicer. So not to fret when it doesn't fit, solve the problem. I'm gonna make the pieces even smaller. So it is about 2 tablespoons of orange juice. Now you can use sugar if you prefer not to use orange juice. I am keeping it all natural and using orange juice and not the sugar, but you can use sugar in it. And again, this recipe is going to be up and linked with this podcast, so you'll be able to see everything. So here we go. And when it comes to acid or juice, I never think you could have too much. And again, like I said earlier, I did make a little bit extra on the halibut because it is such a requested item in this house. So a little bit of extra juice, you know, come on. Go extra every now and then. Don't have to follow all the rules. Squeeze this in, and again, like I said, you could use sugar in place, but I'm going with the straight OJ. And almost done. And after this, I will be chopping up some cilantro and adding in my salt and my olive oil. And this will be covered, and it will be waiting in the refrigerator next to the fish that is cooking. All right, so now that we're done with this, oh, I wish you could just smell all this. It smells so fabulous. We're going to put this all off to the side, and we're going to get to cutting our cilantro. Okay, we are on to cilantro. Now, I am not the type that's going to sit there and pick out all the little cilantro leaves. And I also don't like to overly chop it because I think it makes it waters it down and takes all that great flavor and all that juice from the cilantro and the aroma, and it, you know, puts it all over your cutting board. You want it in your ceviche. So I'm just going to gather it up, and I'm just going to, and again, I think cilantro should be in everything. So I am just going to give it a quick little dusting. It's 1/3 cup, and I'm just going to get these little pieces that stuck out here at the end a little bit and chop them up just a little bit. Again, I don't want to mess with it too much. I'm going to throw these in and leave a little bit of cilantro at the end for your garnish over your top. But again, I just don't think you can go wrong with ridiculous amounts of cilantro in anything. I'd put it in a bathtub if I could. And next will be our olive oil, which is optional, and our salt. So it's just a little bit more than a pinch. I'm going to put this in, and our olive oil is 2 tablespoons. And I'm going to stir this up. And again, these are your flavorings for your ceviche. So this is that beautiful coloring that's going to come through and just make it so bright and shiny and lovely. And if you could just smell it. So good. I gotta tell you, I almost forgot. We need 1/3 cup of the Spanish olives. Now, sometimes you can get them sliced, chopped, whatever it is. They have to be pitted. Now, this is the one thing that always confuses me. When I hear pitted, I think it's got a pit in it. But pitted means it's been de-pitted. So no pit. You can bite right through it. And you're just going to dice them up. Again, if you like them chunky, you can keep them chunky. If you like them really finely diced, you can finely dice them. But it's 1/3 cup Spanish olives diced and thrown right in the flavorings. Okay, just doing our fine little last dicing of our olives. And they are going to go in with the flavorings. This does, and I have to tell you, before I started making ceviche, I didn't realize there was supposed to be olives in there. And it's a, you know, it's a nice little addition. Gotta tell you, kind of like it. Now, this recipe does call for 2 avocados to be seeded. Take the seed out and dice them up. But for the sake of them not turning brown and getting yucky and gooey in here, I wait and do that at the very, very end. So I will cover this, put this in the refrigerator, hold these off until the very end, and right before I start to mix them together, I will dice these up and throw them in so they stay, you know, nice and they don't get too mushy in the ceviche. So there are 2 avocados, but they're yet to come. Next up is my tortillas. All right, so little honesty here, I said homemade tortilla chips, and they're homemade tortilla chips. I didn't roll out the dough or any of that other stuff. But what I did buy, and we prefer here in our house, we eat gluten-free. So I have gluten-free tortilla, taco shells, flour. I've done it with pita that are a little bit thicker. And I have to tell you, I think these come out better when it comes to, dipping in the ceviche. So I'm going to take this whole pack of 6, and you're just going to cut them into triangles. Now, this is so easy. Meanwhile, before you've done this, actually, heat your oven to 350. And let me make sure that's actually right on the, yes, you're going to heat it to 350. And then you're going to cut them into 8 triangles. So kind of like you're making a pizza. There is our 8 triangles. And you're going to take your olive oil. Quantities will all be linked to the recipe. So your olive oil, your black pepper, your dry basil, even though I'm a herb girl, it's dry basil and garlic powder. All right, we're gonna mix that all together. So it's nice and gooey. Now, you might have to double this recipe. It all depends on how many chips you're making. So I'm going to do this for as many as 6 we have here. Now, if you're not a hands person, you might not particularly like this next part, but I've done it more than one way. And the bottom line is, it's just easier if you do it by your hand. So if you drop them in and you just want to get them all coated, and trust me, it's got to keep doing it. Coat them all. It smells lovely. I've even thrown rosemary in if you want to, but I really just want the flavor of the ceviche to shine through. But you can sprinkle in dried rosemary. You can sprinkle in dried thyme. Really, whatever you want. You just want to get that nice coating on all of them. So depending on how many chips you're making, you might have to do this recipe 2 or 3 times. You know, it all depends on the batch you're making, you know, how your family eats it, how you eat it. But if you can see here, they are all coming together nicely. And I know it looks they look a little wet. And trust me, like I said, I've done this before. I'm a professional. They will come out super crispy when you bake them in the oven. So next, I will put these onto a cookie sheet and we will go to the oven. Now you're gonna take your triangles after you've mixed them up by hand. And again, it's just easier, I promise you. You're gonna lay them out on your cookie sheet. Now you can line your cookie sheets with parchment paper so they don't get as messy. Whatever you choose to do is fine. Now, if you notice, I didn't lay them out perfectly so they all didn't touch each other. They can all be friends in the sandbox, it's fine. They will come apart, meaning separate, when you take them out of the oven. So don't worry, your chips aren't gonna break. It's gonna be fine. Now you bake them at 350 for 8 to 12 minutes. It really depends on if you're using a pita, if you're using, you know, any kind of bread, but it's just until they just start to brown. So not golden brown, they'll come out really, really hard. So just start to brown. You'll see that there's no more moistness to them. And you bring them out, cool them off completely, and you can eat them immediately. If you don't eat them immediately, you just put them in an airtight bag and you can eat them whenever you want. So you can make some to have with your ceviche and some to have later. You can crumble them up over a salad or even some salsa, some avocado, whatever you want to do. We all know chips are, they're meant for everything. They love everybody. So we're gonna pop these in the oven at 350, anywhere between 8 and 12 minutes, and they're absolutely delicious. You're gonna love them. And we are finally at our last step, and that is mixing and eating. So I took the halibut and the onion and the juice, the lime juice that it was cooking in, and I strained it. So now it's just the onion and the fish. I'm going to take our flavorings and pour it in. This was the jalapeno, the olives, the tomatoes, the cilantro, the olive oil, all of that fun stuff. I'm gonna mix it in here. We're gonna put all this together, and then I am going to dice up some avocado, the 2 avocados. We're gonna put that on top, and then we will eat it. And our last part is to get the seed out of your 2 avocados, or just, you know, let's just leave it there when it doesn't work. Now to dice it, you're gonna score it inside. You might wanna use a butter knife for this because a sharp knife might go through the skin and then, you know, you're looking at a little bit of blood. So I'm just gonna go back and forth, and then I'm gonna take a spoon. I'm gonna scoop it out. It's already diced, our little trick. And then I'm gonna do that again for the other pieces. Again, this is 2 avocados at the very end. I'm just gonna score it with a butter knife so no one gets hurt and Matthew doesn't end up taking me to the emergency room, which, you know, there's still time for that, right? One more avocado. And I'm sure there's people out there watching that have a whole different way to do it, but this is the way I have been taught. Oh, these look so yummy. And the last one. And we're going to scoop it. We're going to do a little stir. Oh, I wish you guys could smell all this. It smells so good. Matthew's behind the camera now. Very glad that I didn't cut myself up. And he is looking forward to this. This is going to be delicious. So I baked my tortilla chips. as directed. And again, all of this will be linked up to you at the end and on all the posts. I'm gonna scoop. Oh, I just can't. Between recordings, I was moving Taylor out of one apartment and into another. So this is a perfect ending to a very, very difficult day. Notice Matthew welcomed me at the door with my glass of wine and my brand new chip that I just baked today. You're gonna love this. Classic ceviche and homemade tortilla chips. Thank you, everybody.